My phone buzzed on the bar next to my beer. It was a random number, no caller ID. Ignoring calls from unknown numbers was a habit I picked up after the breakup. But something about it, a nagging feeling. I slammed my beer down, grabbed the phone, and answered. Hello? Static. Then a muffled voice, barely audible. Mark, listen, it's about Sarah. You gotta. The line went dead. My stomach lurched. Sarah, my ex-fiancée. The woman who shattered my trust into a million pieces. A million possibilities raced through my mind. Was it her? Was she trying some new tactic to win me back? Had she finally lost it? No. This felt different, urgent. A cryptic message about Sarah, delivered anonymously? This was something else entirely. I slammed my half-finished beer on the counter, ignoring the bartender's questioning stare. Sorry, gotta go, I muttered, throwing a crumpled bill on the bar. The message could be a prank, a cruel joke. But what if it wasn't? What if it held a piece of the puzzle I'd been missing all this time? I sprinted out of the bar, ignoring the cool night air, and hailed a cab. Sarah had moved away a few months back, supposedly for a fresh start. Did she have something to do with this message? The thought sent a fresh wave of anger through me. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance I'd been waiting for. A chance to understand her betrayal, a chance for some semblance of closure. The cab ride felt like an eternity. Finally, I reached my apartment building, fumbling with my keys as adrenaline pumped through my veins. Inside, I rushed to my laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I needed to find the source of the message. It was a long shot, but maybe there was a trace, a digital footprint I could follow. Hours melted away as I dug through online records, frustration mounting with every dead end. Just as I was about to give up, a notification popped up on my screen. An email, from the same anonymous address used for the phone call. My heart hammered in my chest as I clicked it open. The email contained a single line. Meet me at the pier, midnight. Come alone. It's about Sarah. The wind whipped my hair as I stood on the pier, the icy December air biting at my exposed skin. Midnight. Not a soul in sight, except for a lone figure huddled at the far end. My gut churned. Was this a setup? A bad idea? The email offered no details, just a cryptic message about Sarah. Doubt gnawed at me, but the memory of the video, the raw betrayal, fueled my resolve. I took a deep breath and started walking, boots crunching on the frozen wooden planks. As I got closer, the figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, bundled in a thick coat, her face obscured by a scarf. You Mark? She rasped, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. Yeah, I replied cautiously. Who are you? What's this about Sarah? She hesitated, then pulled down the scarf. Moonlight revealed a face etched with worry, late 30s, eyes filled with a nervous energy. My name's Lisa. I used to work with Sarah at her old company. My brows furrowed. Used to? Yeah, I quit a few months ago. Look, this isn't easy, but you need to know something about Sarah's situation. She gestured for me to follow her further down the pier, away from the faint glow of the distant city lights. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. This whole thing felt sketchy, a scene straight out of a bad movie. But the mention of Sarah's situation, whatever that meant, kept me rooted to the spot. What situation? I pressed, my voice tight. Lisa stopped and turned to face me. The guy in the video, the one Sarah was with, he wasn't who you thought he was. He was trouble, big trouble. My heart hammered in my chest. Could this be real? A shred of hope, a sliver of doubt about Sarah's motives, flickered within me. What do you mean? Explain. Lisa took a deep breath, her voice dropping to a hushed whisper. He was using her, Mark. Using her for some kind of business deal. She thought she was in love, but... The rest of her words were drowned out by a sudden, ear-piercing screech. Headlights cut through the darkness, blinding for a moment. Then a car screeched to a halt right behind us on the pier. A dark figure emerged, a menacing silhouette against the car's headlights. There you are, Lisa, the figure snarled. And who's your friend? Lisa's face drained of color. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight with fear. Mark, you gotta go. Now. My blood ran cold. The man approaching on the pier was the same one from the video, the one Sarah betrayed me with. His face, twisted in anger, sent a fresh wave of fury coursing through me. Lisa's grip on my arm tightened, her voice a choked whisper. He's dangerous, Mark. Please, just run. Run? Part of me wanted to bolt, to get the hell out of there. But another part, fueled by a primal urge for payback, wouldn't budge. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. This was about Lisa, a stranger caught in the crossfire of her lies. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to understand the truth behind Sarah's betrayal. Who is he? I growled at Lisa, my voice surprisingly steady. What's he after? Lisa's answer was cut short by the approaching figure. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes flickering between us with a predatory glint. Lisa, he snarled again, this time with a dangerous edge. We need to talk. He didn't even acknowledge me. The disrespect, the arrogance of it, fueled my anger further. You got something to say to me, pal? I spat, stepping forward, putting myself between him and Lisa. He scoffed, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. You? Who are you? Doesn't matter. I shot back, trying to project a confidence I didn't entirely feel. But you seem to be forgetting something. This is a public pier. My words hung in the air, a tense silence settling over us for a beat. The man's eyes narrowed, his gaze lingering on me for a long moment. Then, a slow smirk spread across his face. Public, huh? He drawled. He reached into his pocket, his movements slow and deliberate. My heart hammered in my chest as I saw the glint of metal. Maybe so, but nobody saw us come here, did they? Panic clawed at my throat. This wasn't a bluff. This guy, whoever he was, wasn't afraid to get violent. A primal fear urged me to run, but the thought of leaving Lisa at his mercy held me frozen. I needed a plan, fast, before things got completely out of hand. Adrenaline surged through me, the icy night air a stark contrast to the heat rising in my chest. This wasn't how I planned this. No grand confrontation, no dramatic reveal. Just me, a scared woman, and a potentially dangerous guy on a deserted pier with a glint of metal in his hand. Thinking fast, I glanced around. There, a few dozen yards away, a lone figure walked their dog, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Hey, I yelled, my voice booming across the pier. The dog walker stopped, startled, looking in our direction. The man with the weapon, caught off guard, momentarily shifted his focus. It was my chance. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged forward, grabbing Lisa's arm and yanking her behind me. Run, I shouted, pushing her towards the approaching dog walker. Lisa stumbled, then regained her footing and bolted. The man reacted quickly, cursing under his breath. He shoved the weapon back in his pocket and sprinted after her. I watched in a mixture of fear and a strange sense of satisfaction. At least I'd gotten her out of the immediate danger zone. Now, it was me. The man was closing the distance fast, his face contorted in rage. My mind raced. Fighting him head-on was a fool's game. I needed to buy time, maybe attract more attention. Suddenly, a brilliant, albeit reckless, idea struck me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Right before the guy reached me, I held it up high and aimed it at him, the screen illuminating my face. Hey, I yelled, trying to sound more confident than I felt. You think I'm afraid to call the cops? We're on a public pier, remember? The man skidded to a halt, surprised by my sudden action. He squinted at the phone in my hand, then back at me. His face was a mask of indecision, a war raging behind his eyes. You think anyone's gonna hear you out here? He scoffed, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice. There's someone right there, I bluffed, pointing towards the dog walker who was now watching the scene unfold with wide eyes and a leash held tightly in their hand. And guess what? I have your picture. It was a complete lie, of course. But the seed of doubt seemed to be planted. The man hesitated for another beat, then let out a frustrated growl. This ain't over, he snarled, throwing a final menacing glare in my direction before turning and disappearing into the darkness. My legs gave way, and I slumped down on the cold wooden planks, chest heaving, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It was over, for now. But the encounter left me shaken, the adrenaline slowly replaced by a cold dread. Who was that guy? What did he want with Sarah? More importantly, was Sarah truly innocent in all of this, or was there more to her story than Lisa let on? The night deepened, the icy wind whispering secrets I desperately wanted to unravel. The shrill ring of my phone tore me away from the mountain of paperwork on my desk. It was an unknown number again. Hesitantly, I picked it up. Hello? Mark, it's Lisa. My breath hitched. Lisa, the woman from the pier, the one who claimed Sarah was being used. A mix of emotions flooded through me, suspicion, a flicker of hope, and a healthy dose of caution. Lisa, I acknowledged cautiously. What is it? I need to see you. It's important. About Sarah. Her voice was shaky, laced with urgency. My mind raced. Could this be a trap? Another one of Sarah's schemes? But the desperation in her voice. Where? I finally asked, more out of curiosity than trust. The park, near the fountain. Noon. Please, Mark. It's the only way I can explain. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a war raging within me. Part of me wanted to run to the farthest corner of the earth and hide. The other part, the part that craved answers, the part that still held a sliver of hope for Sarah's innocence, couldn't ignore the plea. Noon. The park. A public place, at least. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my coat and headed out the door. The walk to the park was a blur. My mind replayed the events of the past few days, the cryptic message, the confrontation on the pier, the lingering questions about Sarah's involvement. As I approached the fountain, I spotted her sitting on a nearby bench, bundled in a jacket despite the unseasonably warm weather. Seeing her again brought back a wave of conflicting emotions. Hesitantly, I walked towards her. Lisa? I called out, my voice sounding rougher than usual. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and relief. Mark, you came. I stopped a few feet away, unsure of how to proceed. Why? I asked bluntly. Why should I trust you? Lisa took a deep breath. I know it looks bad, but you need to hear me out. Sarah, she was caught in the middle of something dangerous. She didn't know what she was getting into. Her words were a bombshell. The image of Sarah, the woman I loved, the woman who betrayed me, being a victim, it was hard to swallow. But a tiny spark of hope flickered within me. Dangerous? I pressed, needing her to elaborate. Lisa nodded, her gaze dropping to her lap. The guy from the pier, his name is Alex. He works for a shady investment firm. He was using Sarah to get to some information her company had. My mind struggled to keep up. Investment firm? Information? This was a whole new level of betrayal, one I hadn't even considered. And Sarah, caught in the middle of some corporate espionage? How do you know all this? I asked, suspicion creeping back in. Lisa looked up, her eyes pleading. I used to work with Sarah, remember? I knew about Alex, about his methods. When I saw you two together, the video, I knew I had to warn you. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. This has proof. Emails, recordings, everything Alex used on Sarah. The weight of the flash drive felt heavy in my hand. Proof. A chance to understand the truth, the whole truth. But with it came a new dilemma. Did I believe her? Was Sarah truly innocent, or was this all part of some elaborate scheme? Looking into Lisa's worried eyes, I knew I had a decision to make. A decision that could either bring closure, or plunge me deeper into this web of lies and deceit. The knock on my apartment door shattered the silence of the evening. My heart jumped into my throat. It had been weeks since the whole Sarah mess blew up, weeks of radio silence on my end, a barrage of desperate voicemails on hers. Who could it be at this hour? Cautiously, I approached the door, peering through the peephole. My breath hitched. It was her, Sarah. She looked different, gaunt, her eyes rimmed with red, a stark contrast to the polished, confident woman I used to know. My stomach clenched. What did she want? After a beat of hesitation, I cracked the door open a sliver. Sarah? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark, please, she pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. Can we just talk? Part of me wanted to slam the door shut, to shut her out and all the memories she brought flooding back. But another part, a curious, almost morbid part, craved some kind of explanation. I sighed, stepping aside and opening the door wider. Come in, I muttered, surprised by the words escaping my lips. She entered hesitantly, her eyes flitting nervously around the room before landing on me. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Mark, I'm so sorry, she finally choked out, tears welling up in her eyes. Everything I did, it was a huge mistake. I never meant to hurt you. Her words felt hollow, empty promises after the betrayal. But a tiny voice inside me, the one that still held a flicker of care for the woman she used to be, prodded me to listen. Lisa, I started, my voice low and steady. She told me everything. About Alex, the lies, the whole mess. She flinched at the name, a flicker of shame crossing her features. I know, she shouldn't have involved you. But I was scared, Mark. scared of Alex, scared of what he might do. I studied her, searching for a hint of truth in her tear-filled eyes. Was she genuinely remorseful, or was this just another act? So you left your job, moved away. I trailed off, letting the question hang in the air. A fresh start, she offered, her voice barely a whisper. That's all I wanted, a chance to outrun the mess I made. We stood there for a beat longer, the air thick with unspoken words and a tangled web of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe her, to see the woman I fell in love with again. But the other part, the one hardened by betrayal, couldn't shake off the lingering doubt. I need some time, Sarah, I finally said, my voice firm. A lot of time. Disappointment clouded her eyes, but she nodded in understanding. Okay, she whispered, turning towards the door. I understand. Just, please know that I'm truly sorry. With that, she walked out, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of my apartment. The door clicked shut behind her, a final punctuation mark on a chapter of our lives. But as I stood there, the weight of the flash drive from Lisa heavy in my pocket, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. The truth, whatever it was, still lay hidden within the digital files. And I was determined to find it. The familiar chime of my phone startled me from my work. It wasn't unusual for work emails to come through at all hours, but a nagging feeling told me this was different. I swiped the screen, a text notification blinking on the display. Unknown number. My stomach clenched. Spam, probably. But lately, with everything that happened with Sarah, I couldn't ignore anything anonymous. With a deep breath, I tapped the message. He wasn't who you thought he was. Look into Alex's past. Financial crimes, offshore accounts. She deserves better. The message was short, cryptic, but the implication hit me like a ton of bricks. Alex, the guy from the pier, the one Sarah claimed was using her, could it be true? Was there more to his story than a desperate attempt to get information? A surge of conflicting emotions flooded through me. Anger, for being so easily manipulated by Sarah's lies. A flicker of pity? The thought of her being used by someone like Alex left a sour taste in my mouth. But most of all, a burning curiosity. The truth, however ugly, was something I craved. Without wasting another minute, I pulled out Lisa's flash drive. It had been sitting untouched on my desk for weeks, a constant reminder of the mess Sarah had created. Now, it felt like the key to unlocking a mystery. I plugged the drive into my computer, a knot of tension tightening in my gut as the files loaded. Emails, documents, voice recordings, a treasure trove of information, all detailing Alex's shady dealings. The deeper I dug, the more my jaw clenched. This wasn't just some harmless flirtation. Alex was using Sarah, using her company's access to manipulate the stock market for his own gain. Disbelief warred with a strange sense of vindication. Sarah hadn't been completely innocent, not by a long shot. But she'd clearly been manipulated, played for a fool by this Alex character. Now, the question loomed. What did I do with this information? Expose Alex and his web of lies, potentially giving Sarah a chance to see his true colors? Or remain silent and let her face the consequences of her actions, consequences that could very well involve legal trouble? The decision hung heavy in the air, a test of my own integrity. Part of me wanted revenge, to see Sarah suffer for the pain she inflicted. But another part, a smaller, more forgiving one, couldn't shake the image of her tear-stained face, the regret in her eyes the last time I saw her. Taking a deep breath, I closed the laptop, the incriminating files burning a hole in my digital pocket. The decision wasn't easy, but I knew in my gut what I had to do. I wouldn't expose Alex, wouldn't be his puppet master. Sarah would have to learn the truth on her own, and face the music for her own choices. As for me, it was time to move on, to truly leave the past